Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can I have your attention for just a few minutes? Hi, Mary Beth. I know so many people in this room, and I love all the excitement and all the buzz. And I don't want to start calling you out by name if you're still standing. Please take your seats so we can get our program started. All right, wonderful, thank you. Good morning, welcome. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to Temple Milwaukee's 13th annual leadership event. I'm Tammy Garrison, and I work at Miller Coors in Community Affairs, and I also have the incredible honor, and when I say honor, it truly is, I am honored to be the Temple Milwaukee Board Chair as well. If you haven't done so already, please start enjoying your breakfast. I believe the Pfister staff will be coming around as well. You've got some fruit to get started with that. So if it isn't already evident with our sellout crowd of 650 business professionals, and let me just pause and say, too, that this was the fastest record time that we sold out for this event. And I'm nearly positive, in addition to Tempo having a great reputation for putting on a fantastic event, I'm nearly positive it has to do with our keynote speaker today, Jenny Fleiss. Jenny's the co-founder of Rent the Runway. Now she's the CEO and co-founder of Jet Black, and I'm just so excited that she's here with us in Milwaukee today to share some insights with you all and so we can learn from her. The theme of our event today, and what you'll hear Jenny speak about, is sparking the innovator in you. So if your spark isn't quite lit, or if it needs to be ignited, or reignited for that matter, we're confident that today's session with Jenny will have you leaving the Pfister today all sorts of fired up. Jenny, we're thrilled to have you with us today. Thank you. As I mentioned, this is our 13th annual leadership event. It was just over a decade ago, several Temple Milwaukee members embarked on a journey to create a signature event to bring greater awareness to our phenomenal organization and engage Milwaukee community members. With a capacity crowd and attendance today, that strategic vision has certainly paid off. Temple Milwaukee celebrates its 43rd year in 2018 as an organization of more than 350 members holding CEO, executive level, and leadership positions. In addition, Temple Milwaukee is proud to include more than 100 emerging women leaders who in January embarked on their 3rd year in our organization. Yay! Today's leadership event is just one of the many ways our organization and its members continue to drive our mission of furthering the impact of women leaders in our community. We continue to provide our members with opportunities to network with leaders and future leaders and enhance our awareness of issues and trends having an impact in Milwaukee, and to promote the active contribution of Temple Milwaukee as an organization whose presence is essential to the future success of the Milwaukee business community. Our 13th annual leadership event would not be possible without the generous support of today's sponsors. BMO Harris Bank is proud to serve as premier sponsor of today's event, and at this time, I'd like to invite Kara Kaiser from BMO Harris Bank to the stage to say a few words.
Good morning, and thank you, Tammy. I'm so pleased to be here today, and it is so great to see so many people here for what will be a most amazing event today. As Tammy mentioned, I'm Kara Kaiser with BMO Harris Bank, and I have the privilege of wearing 3 distinct hats this morning. First, as a proud Temple Milwaukee member. Second, as a co-chair of this event. This is my 2nd year as co-chair. And third, and probably most important, is representing my organization, BMO Harris Bank, as today's premier sponsor of the Temple Milwaukee Leadership Event. BMO Harris Bank is committed to the promotion of women in the workplace and beyond, and there are many things that I could talk about to point to this. Globally, BMO is one of only 9 organizations to win the coveted Catalyst Award twice. Nationally, BMO has been awarded the Top Women in Banking Team Award from American Banker for 9 consecutive years. And a little closer to home, BMO was honored with the Temple Milwaukee Corporate Mentor Award last year. The mantra for our BMO for Women initiative at the bank is, as a woman, you've got what it takes. Now go get the support that you deserve. So I love that. One of the hallmarks of Temple Milwaukee, and specifically this leadership event, is the willingness of our members to step up and volunteer to work to make our events amazingly successful. And this event is no different. I would especially like to recognize my 2 co-chairs for today's event. Would you 2 ladies please stand? Sue Colgrove from the Zizzo Group. And this year we were joined by one of our amazing emerging women leaders, Jess Albrecht from Wells Fargo Advisors. As the 3 co-chairs of this event, we are also so fortunate to be surrounded by an amazing events committee. I can tell you that this group of women has been hard at work for the last 6 months, perfecting every detail that goes into putting on a world-class event like this, in addition to their day jobs, right? So let's give a round of applause to all of those listed on the screen. And finally, can we dim the lights just a little bit? Terrific. We would be remiss if we did not also recognize and thank Sue Colgrove, Carrie, Courtney, and the crew at Zizzo Group for the amazing, illuminating, and inspiring centerpieces. I'll draw your attention to those right now. A little bit about these works of art. The design was created by Zizzo Group's Senior Art Director, Carrie Chapko. Carrie, can you put your hand up right here in the middle? What you may also find interesting about Carrie, in line with our theme, is she too is a female entrepreneur, and in her free time she works her own business, Studio Carrie. The centerpiece at your tables carries a message that success exists within all of us. All you have to do is spark it. So as a gift to all of our guests today, you can go to our Temple Milwaukee website at templemilwaukee.org and download the image that you see on your centerpiece, and you can use it as wallpaper on your phones, on your computers, at your home or your office. I think the ladies at this table have already got that all set on their phones. And, you know, the gifts keep coming. You can also download a black and white version of this image. You can color it yourself. So many adults are out coloring these days. Or your children might want to color it. It might be wonderful for that, whatever your preference. But we do want to see your works of art. So show off your creativity. Post it on our social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Use the hashtag Temple Leadership. We want to see how we have sparked the innovator in you. So thank you again to the Zizzo Group for injecting your creativity into today's event. So again, it's been a true pleasure serving as one of today's event co-chairs and representing BMO Harris Bank as premier corporate sponsor. I'll turn it back over to Tammy.
One more round of applause for Kara and BMO Harris Bank for being our presenting sponsor, premier sponsor. So in addition to BMO Harris Bank, we have 3 presenting sponsors that we'd like to recognize this morning. They are Hush Blackwell, Marcus Hotels and Resorts, and U.S. Bank. Let's thank them, please. So I think you've all started to notice the theme we have going for this morning, and that's really celebrating female entrepreneurship. This morning, we invited 12 female entrepreneurs to showcase their business in our entrepreneur marketplace. Each of these women and their businesses are listed in this insert that's found inside your program. If you didn't get a chance to wander through the marketplace, we encourage you to do so after the event. There are some amazing, innovative disruptors amongst these entrepreneurs, and you should meet each and every one of them and find out more about their business. Let's give those women for being here today and for being disruptors and being innovators a round of applause, please. And the Female Entrepreneur Marketplace wouldn't be possible without the generous donation of our Marketplace corporate sponsors. We'd like to acknowledge them at this time. Baird, Doman, GE Healthcare, Marquette University, Neroli Salon and Spa, Reinhardt, Rockwell Automation, and Wibbick. Let's also give them a round of applause, please. Our table sponsors and half table sponsors are going to be listed on the screen today, and they're also in your programs as well. Finally, we'd like to thank our in-kind sponsors, our media partner, the Milwaukee Business Journal, our print partner, Girl Scouts of Southeast Wisconsin, and signage from BVK. Let's also thank them for all their support today. During breakfast, I invite you to join the conversations already happening on our live social media feed, which is going to be displayed on the screen shortly. We encourage you to use the hashtag #TempoLeadership to tweet about the event, post on the Tempo Milwaukee Facebook page, put it on Instagram, add your hashtags, take a picture of your table, of your friends. We've already put a few things up there to get you started as well. So enjoy your breakfast, enjoy the company of your guests, talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, talk about the power of women at your table today. Enjoy, and we'll be back very shortly. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I hate to interrupt your conversation. Good morning. If I can get your attention, please. Thank you, Tammy. Good morning. I hate to interrupt your conversation, but we have a really great program to get started. Good morning. I'm Jen Dirks, and I'm honored to serve as President and CEO of Tempo Milwaukee. So excited all of you are here. What a fabulous event. I know we're getting some of the breakfast still served, but what a beautiful plate, right? Super colorful. And it's, can we just give a round of applause to the Pfister team and staff here? Woo-hoo! Thank you. This is truly amazing. You know, I thought the energy at our table was incredible, but from this vantage point, it's stellar. It's awesome to look out on the crowd, see the centerpieces. I hope you guys are all excited. Are you excited to be here this morning? Awesome. Woo! Well, I know that I am one of many, many loyal customers to Rent the Runway. I feel that I could point out a number of different women in the audience: Peggy Williams-Smith, Tammy Garrison, Marit Harm. We are all loyal customers to Rent the Runway. I think, in fact, at this point, I should probably be owning stock in Rent the Runway. But really, really excited to be here and excited for our keynote speaker. I have the honor and privilege of introducing Jenny Fleiss. So Jenny recently started Jet Black, the first portfolio company within Walmart's startup incubator. Jet Black is a personal shopping service over text message where consumers can buy virtually anything click-free shopping. Jenny has grown a team to innovate in this area of conversational commerce and create a scalable technology platform for Walmart. Previously, Jenny co-founded Rent the Runway, a business that has truly transformed the retail industry by making designer clothing rentals a convenient and accessible luxury experience for millions of women, including me. During her 8 years at Rent the Runway, Jenny wore many hats, serving as president, head of logistics, head of business development, and head of special projects. That's a long list of positions. Jenny remains a Rent the Runway board member and advisor. Jenny has been honored with numerous recognitions, including Inc. Magazine's 30 Under 30, Fortune Magazine's 40 Under 40, Most Powerful Women Entrepreneurs, and Fast Company's Most Influential Women in Technology. And if any of you read the Wall Street Journal, she was featured just recently in a podcast, Designing Your Own Business, very relevant to today's session. Prior to Rent the Runway, Jenny worked at Lehman Brothers and Morgan Stanley as part of their strategic planning group. She earned her MBA from Harvard Business School and graduated cum laude from Yale University. She is co-founder of the, I heard some wows, I know, quite impressive, right? She is co-founder of the RTR Foundation, a proud advisor to and investor in several startups, serves on the advisory board of the HBS Startup Studio, and is a guest lecturer at, get this, Yale, Princeton, NYU, Columbia, and Harvard Business School. Gosh, it's just exhausting, right? Thinking about it. She currently resides in New York City with her husband and 3 children. Quite an impressive resume, wouldn't you agree? Please join me in welcoming Jenny Fleiss to the stage. As Jenny makes her way up to the stage, she'll be joined by today's moderator, a familiar face to those in the room. Susan Kim is celebrating 20 years and counting with today's TMJ4. She has covered many stories during her tenure and during her many years on the anchor desk at Live at Daybreak, which has been recognized as the best morning newscast several times by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association. Susan also believes in making her community a better place to live and supporting organizations like Tempo Milwaukee. We are so very fortunate. Please join me in welcoming Jenny Fleiss and Susan Kim to Tempo Milwaukee's leadership event. Give us a few minutes. We're going to do some technology switching around here, so give us a second. I'm just going to move these up.
How'd you like the weather this morning? Wonderful, isn't it? Oh my gosh. It was like winter came overnight, 80s yesterday.
I know, I brought in the good weather. Huh?
Yes. Thank you, Jenny. Well, we are so honored to be here this morning. Thanks so much. We have a list of really great questions that we're going to talk to Jenny about and some other ones that might come up along the way. Hopefully we'll get those covered. We've had a chance to chat a little bit, and Jenny is just really interesting and fascinating. Her resume obviously speaks for itself. So Jenny, welcome to Wisconsin and Milwaukee.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. This really is like great energy and vibes in the room, especially at an early time of the day. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you to Tempo. Thank you to all the sponsors as well.
All right. So we talked about Rent the Runway, and Jen was mentioning she knows a lot of people here love Rent the Runway. Let's show Jenny some love. How many of you have checked out Rent the Runway or at least rented from Rent the Runway? Raise your hands.
Oh my gosh.
All right,
that is incredible. Wow.
Great to see. So obviously most of the people here have heard of Rent the Runway or checked it out for themselves. But for those who don't know what it is, give us an idea of how it works, and how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, so on renttherunway.com, you can rent any fashion item for either a series of days, or we now have a subscription program where you can actually just rent on an ongoing basis and keep items as long as you'd like. The business started off with dress rentals, and the concept was that with social media, Facebook kills outfits. The idea that you wear something, you're immediately photographed that day, it gets posted on social media, and you can't repeat that outfit, let alone the fact that like thousands of people are seeing these images. So your brand and that image you put forward is even more important than ever. And so it created this social pressure and this need for women to constantly change their outfits and to really look their best. So that was some of the genesis of the idea. I think a real catalyzing part of it, though, was just seeing the impact that fashion can have on women. You put on a great dress, maybe you do your hair and makeup, and you feel empowered. It's like your armor. You feel like you can take on the world. And as Jen and I were working on starting this business, and we saw women putting on these dresses, like that was the emotional connection that we felt like we wanted to stand behind as a brand. It was kind of this like, how do you feel like Cinderella for your special event, whether that's a black tie wedding or that's just a power meeting at work?
So the idea of renting something, paying money for a dress to rent it, and then sending it back, it was such a new concept when you started, yes. What, in 2008 or 2009?
Yeah, we started in 2008. The business we launched 2009.
Okay, so I would assume that you heard a lot of no's when you went around asking for support.
Yes,
How did you get around that?
So yeah, we heard no's a lot. Well, one of my favorite stories is Jen and I met at Harvard Business School, and within a day,
and Jen's your co-founder.
Jen's my co-founder of Rent the Runway, and we were at lunch at Harvard Business School. She was telling me the story of her sister Becky, who had just bought a $2,000 Marchesa dress. Marchesa is a very high-end designer, and Becky was making not that much money, recent college grad living in New York, and so her older sister, my co-founder, was like, this is crazy, like how could you spend this much money, you're in credit card debt? And Becky said, well, all the other dresses in my closet are dead to me because I've been photographed in them. They've been posted on social media. And then she said, I'm going to a wedding. I might meet my future husband at this event. So funny comments, but also kind of telling of a millennial who is in this moment where there's the biggest gap between probably her social life and her actual income that she's making. And so as a result, you saw the industry responding with things like fast fashion, Zara, H&M, Forever 21. And what started to chip away and get lost with that, it was like the real great confidence and feeling of wearing a designer dress. So the first thing that we did after having kind of a lunch brainstorm conversation about this funny Becky situation was we cold called Diane von Furstenberg, who's a very famous fashion designer, probably like the most famous fashion designer.
Well, what did you say when you say you cold called her?
Well,
Hello,
we sent an email.
Jenny
We sent
Fleiss.
an email. So I used the term cold. It was an email,
Okay.
and we had what we like thought was her email. And I think we tried like 10 variations of it. It was through like it was like, I think her email is like dvf@aol.com or like dvf1@aol.com. So we had through a distant connection, what we thought was her email. And I think this is where it comes in, like being somewhat naive is a great aspect of entrepreneurship because we did not realize how kind of crazy, this was pretty crazy and bold of us to do. We didn't come from the fashion industry. And the email said something to the effect of, we're two women at Harvard Business School and we'd like to come talk to you about a new business that we're starting. And lo and behold, she emailed us back that day, I think within like a few hours, and it said, come to my office tomorrow at like 5 p.m. And we were like, whoa, like, is this actually her?
Right.
First of all, responding. Like, I don't know.
Are you getting pranked?
But yeah, we're like, and it was like hot pink bubble letter response too. It was kind of strange. But we're like, this is what entrepreneurship is. So we were in Boston. We got on our DVF dresses the next day, and we did our hair, and we drove to New York. And for an hour and a half, she told us how she hated the concept. Yes, so that was our first big no. And I'm so glad that it came very early on, because we walked out of that meeting, and I was pretty demoralized, right? I think as you would be. And I think that's when it's great to have co-founders, because my co-founder was like, this is great. She just told us all the things like she didn't like, and therefore we can kind of recater our sales pitch to future designers to make sure we address these problems. And so I think listening and hearing kind of from all the stakeholders about where can you help them, how do you need to tweak and pivot your sales pitch. And from that moment we came up with a saying of no doesn't mean no, it just means not right now, which we still love that saying.
So you took the approach that because she said no, you're going to change things and make it better, and then you started hearing yeses?
Over time. So the couple things.
Right,
it didn't quite feel exactly like that. It didn't go exactly
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah, like that was magic. So all right. So some of the things she said, she was like, I'm worried you're going to cannibalize my sales. Why would someone buy a dress if they could rent it? And so what we realized is we needed to show that this was not the same customer who is buying these designer dresses. We're like, well, how old is the customer who's buying your dress? And they're like, 40s and 50s. We're like, okay, well, this is for a woman in their 20s and 30s, primarily, right? And the business has grown since then. But we're like, this is a customer acquisition tool for you. Like, this is an experiential marketing tool where you can put someone in a great dress. They're going to get a ton of compliments. They're going to post on social media. They'll get even more compliments. It's going to market your brand in a really authentic way. And then when they can afford to buy something, whether it's initially a t-shirt, a blazer, eventually a fancy dress, they're more inclined to purchase from your brand. Let alone the fact that, like, we were hearing from her that she was so pained by fast fashion, like Zara, H&M, all these brands like knocking off her styles. That was really hurting her as a business. And then retailers were slashing prices. At this November 2008, you had Saks slashing prices 70%. So that was also difficult for her as a business. We listened to all these pain points, and we thought about how to recraft the business. We also realized, though, that it would take an average of 10 sales meetings per designer that you wanted to send on. The first 30 designers, that's 300 meetings, right? So like 10 meetings per average. So that first of all gave us the fortitude that we were like, okay, if we hear no the first 5 times, like that's normal, that's good. Like we've got 5 more times, like we're still going. So it let us be in that perspective. But it also speaks to just like the need in that industry to crawl, walk, run. This was, the fashion industry had not changed in a big way for decades, right? And so you're looking at a business that at that time was just starting to go online. So let alone go online and be a rental concept. Like you have to also put yourself in their shoes of this is dramatic, this is potentially threatening, this is changing, I need to get them comfortable. And that's why it takes 10 meetings, right? There's a relationship building component. There's like, let me kind of warm you up to the concept of what we're doing.
So as you look at the landscape right now, and based on what you've gone through with like essentially 2 huge startups, right? What do you think is the key to getting over the hurdle of taking what you think is a really great idea and making it something that's real?
Yeah, so I often think of like 3 things, and both in starting Rent the Runway, starting my new venture, and then as I'm investing and advising in other startups. I think you need to have macro environmental trends that are in favor of what you're doing. So if you think of rental, for example, we were at a moment where it was a recessionary time. Consumers were still wanting to look and feel great, but they were more conscious about cost per wear of an item, right? You had the macro trends of social media that I talked about. You had this trend that it was suddenly like cool to be smart about how you consumed and spent your money. So brands like Gilt Group making it a cool luxury to actually get things at a discount. So those were some macro trends. The next thing I think you need is like the right team. And so Jen and I as co-founders, I think we had a few things. One is we were the consumers ourselves, which I think is really important and powerful. I don't think a man could have started Rent the Runway or could continue to grow that business. Every single day that we were servicing our customers, we had our own gut check ability to say, like, this makes sense, this doesn't. I would do this, I would pay this. And we use that time and again. So you need that ability to kind of see the problem and to kind of have the perspective as the consumer of how you're going to solve it. The other attributes that Jen and I had, one is she is a huge, big picture visionary thinker. I'm the like get from point A to point B. And I think those attributes in starting a business are really important. You can find a unicorn who has all of them. I often find that you kind of need to find a team to embody them. And then the third component I'd say is like hustle. You just need to have the like, let me get something done. Early days for Rent the Runway, what that meant is we wanted to test out our concept. Before we raised any venture money, we said we're going to go buy dresses at retail, and we bought them in our own sizes, and we're like, if this doesn't work, we'll have a great wardrobe. Got to have a backup plan, right? So we spent, we put our necks on the line, we spent a few $1,000s of our own money, and we set up shop at Harvard undergrad, and we were like, let's see if women will rent dresses. And I think in addition to letting us see the value of the business and learn a ton, we also learned, like, did we enjoy doing this, right? Because, like, you're operating the business. We got a ton of credit from investors because they were like, oh, like, they're actually making this happen. Like, we made revenue 2 weeks after we thought of the concept by setting up this little mini business.
Okay. So now you're doing something different. When did you decide it was time to leave Rent the Runway? Like, what is your advice to people when they're in a spot and they're thinking, is it time to change? Is it not? What was your checklist for making that decision?
Yeah, so I think some of it comes down to like gut feeling at the end of the day. I have always been an entrepreneur at heart. So I was like the 8-year-old who my weekend fun was running lemonade stands. Like that's what I wanted to do all the time. And I took it very seriously. I would create bundled pricing and scope out the real estate that was like the best traffic. I would be really competitive if someone took that spot before I got there at 8 a.m. or whatever it was. So I like loved that this was in my DNA. And even as we were starting Rent the Runway, Jen and I kept having discussions around like I at some point would start another business. Like this was just in me. I love the early stages. So it was more of a question of when. And I think it was really important to me that the business was in a good place when I left, both because I'm a shareholder of the business, but also I really care about the company and those relationships. So once Rent the Runway got to EBITDA positive as a business, and once we had a leadership team that I felt like would be totally okay without me, I was open-minded to go on to my next adventure. And that's when the Jet Black opportunity, timing's everything, came up. And I took that leap to kind of go back into the trenches of an early stage business.
So speaking of Jet Black, it's part of Walmart, right?
Yes.
And so you started that literally from ground zero.
Yes, from ground zero. I was employee 1.
So how does this work? And you've grown it to what, almost 200 employees now, right?
Yeah, it's 175 employees in the last 17 months. So it's been a wild ride. So I'd say the first thing, like this was a really unique opportunity for me, right? Like Rent the Runway is an amazing company, and it wouldn't have just been anything that I would have kind of jumped for as an opportunity. But we're in an exciting moment of time. Like I think the landscape of big major players, and I'll use Amazon and Walmart as two of them for sure, are each figuring out their positioning and like how do they differentiate themselves and add value? Like what is their competitive advantage? How do they kind of play to gain market share in this ecosystem? So I'm like, I wanted to be a part of that. I also really respected that I think Walmart's at a place where they're being very serious about innovation. And so they acquired a company called Jet, and with that came a team of entrepreneurs. And so injecting the entrepreneurial DNA into that company is something they're taking very seriously. And so if I thought of like, how can I add the most value to our world right now and bring my unique, energy and passion as an entrepreneur and do something with that, it's to have the impact of a company like Walmart that is so large at this really important moment in time. So that's why I was excited to be part of the Walmart kind of incubator that I'm a part of and that ecosystem. The business itself came from another feeling that I had as a consumer. So just like Rent the Runway came from this like, we wanted lots of great dresses to wear. We were being photographed on social media. The concept of Jet Black came from my role as a busy mom who constantly is looking for just efficiency tools to optimize my life.
Because you have 3 kids.
I have 3 kids.
And they're, how old are they?
Working 6, 3, and 2. So life is like constantly nuts. And one of my favorite things to do is think of like these efficiency hacks, right? And so I have a ton of them. And it's really fun for me. And so one thing I started to do more frequently would just be to text myself even things that I needed to do or to order, right? Because like they would pop into my mind and it would otherwise be really distracting to like even to make a list or to open up an app to place an order was too distracting. So from that concept, and we talked to other customers as well, this came as like, let's let you shop for everything over text. Like what if you literally from paper towels to a birthday gift all the way to a designer handbag, you could just like text a photo of it. Like this morning I ran out of foundation, I texted a photo of it, I sent it in. It's like, great, your order's confirmed for this. Paper towels. All you have to say is paper towels. They know what paper towels I order because I order them once a month, right? And great, your order's confirmed for this and it arrives the next day. So I think really trying to think of like, where's the future going? And that may eventually happen with voice, right? Like voice will become a bigger part of our world. So text, I think, will also transition into voice.
So the idea being that if you're a member, that you pay a membership, is the membership?
Yeah, you pay a monthly membership fee currently. And I think of it as, there's like Amazon Prime type membership. I think of this as like, the value of your time. So if you think it's $50 a month, so I think if you think that you can save a couple hours of your time in either researching products or weeding through thousands of results online, or time on the phone with like a customer service rep to ask where your order is or whatnot, then this is worth it for you. It includes shipping, so we do same or next day shipping. It includes gift wrap. It includes handwritten gift notes. So it includes returns. So like everyone hates dealing with online returns. It's like we just pick up the bag and we just box it and deal with all that. It's in bags, not boxes. So I think even if you add up the time out, like as a consumer, you're opening boxes, collapsing them, bringing them to the recycling area, taking out the packaging. We tried to think of all the ways we could really save our members time.
Okay, so you started that from ground zero. You started Rent the Runway from ground zero. How has the experience been different in terms of starting from the ground up?
Well, so one of the reasons I am most glad that I kind of went at it for round 2 in entrepreneurship is you take for granted when you're building a company like all that you're learning, because it's just one foot in front of the next, right? It's like this frantic, you're always playing catch up, you're drinking from a fire hose. And now going at it again, I'm like, there's pattern recognition. I've been there, I've done that before. I know how to either handle it. Sometimes it's just being able to tell your team a story of like, guys, I know like the office is feeling really crummy right now and we're packed like sardines and that stinks, but like, let me tell you how bad it really was back in that day. So just giving them the contextual like war stories, I think even that really helps, and letting people, so I think there's that. I also think there's this element of like appreciating the special moments. So like all the startup horror war stories of like that DVF meeting, for example, like that was terrible in the moment. Now it's like this great memory. So I think I also have an appreciation for just like the process of entrepreneurship that I try to share with the team and trying to enjoy the day-to-day of work despite the craziness.
Did you email Diane von Furstenberg again?
Okay. All right. So I literally, at our last board meeting, was it last week, I was in tears because we've now gone back to, in a good way, we've now gone back to some of these designers like DVF and asked them to do video testimonials about what Rent the Runway has done for their brands. Okay. And one of them that we did was DVF. She is like the biggest fan of Rent the Runway. The only thing she's like, my only regret is that I wish I invested when those girls came to me. Like the pendulum has swung completely to the other side, and this is not just for her. And I think it's beyond just saying that she likes us because we buy, a lot of her product. It's really saying how she feels like we've shaped the industry in a positive way and helped the fashion and designer industry, and how beneficial we have been to help her think in an entrepreneurial way and be open-minded. Like, it's really been a partnership with these designer brands, and it took a long time. I think that was the other thing. Like, I talked about the 10 meetings per designer. We're 10 years. We're 10 years now from when we first had the discussions. So it's been a process, but like we've totally gotten there. Designers are obsessed with Rent the Runway.
Yeah, they are.
They really do.
All right, so when you hired all these people, I mean, obviously they're very talented at Rent the Runway. A lot of people, not a lot, but people have left to start their own businesses because you have these like really smart, out-of-the-box thinkers. How did you hire these people? Were there some key assets that really stand out as far as what you were looking for when you hired them and brought them on?
So when we were first starting Rent the Runway, we had little to no money. It was kind of, a lot of times it was a friend of a friend who was just passionate about the idea and what we were doing. Yeah. And typically they would come and they would just be like, can I start helping out? And that means like they weren't making any money. Typically there would be like 3 or 4 months where they were just like coming into the office. But what was great about that, and I was just talking with a woman who had interned at Tempo and kind of then turned into a full-time role, like you get to know each other in this really authentic way. And when a team is like so small, it is every person you bring in and that energy is like that much more important. But it meant that everyone was so passionate about what we were doing, and they knew what they were getting into. They knew that the day-to-day was chaotic. They knew that the hours were long, that they were going to have to wear 10 different hats because we didn't have someone to do each of the roles. So one day you might be organizing a photo shoot, the next day you might be packing boxes in our warehouse. And I think when people know what they're getting into in a job and an experience, like you're setting everyone up for success a little bit more. And then the passion, you can't replace that too. And so it's interesting now going at it again. I mean, we've scaled very, very quickly at Jet Black, and like because we're a part of Walmart ecosystem, we are actually paying salaries. So great news for the employees, but sometimes there's a little more work in kind of weeding out who's like really passionate, who's really in this, who has that like, I'm going to be in the trenches, I'm going to put in the hours, I'm going to be flexible to do any and every role. But those are some of the attributes I hire for, all around athletes, flexibility, passion, and kind of that innovative energy, someone who's going to take ownership and like take on a problem as their own, not because it's part of their goals, but because like they want to solve it, they want to help, they want to get in there.
Did you say all around athletes?
Yeah. I call it an all-around athlete. So the idea that like when you're early stage, you're typically like, it's for two reasons. One is you're always understaffed. You always feel kind of understaffed. So you need people who can wear many hats. But it also speaks to the fact that you need people who will be flexible, because as a business, you're pivoting, right? I'll give an example of Rent the Runway. Initially, we didn't rent accessories, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, rings. And our customers started to really ask us about it. So all of a sudden, we needed to figure out a way to rent accessories, which meant that we needed someone to make those vendor relationships. We needed someone to figure out the cleaning process for accessories, the packing process, the packaging process. And so you have employees that need to flex in different ways. So we had someone, you're now the accessories person, right? And then at one point, we're like, let's try to do bridesmaid dresses. And we're like, you're now the bridesmaid person, right? Or for a while, it was just like, we've got customers calling us and we need someone to pick up the phones. Like, you're the customer service person now, and you're the warehouse man, and so you kind of get all these additional roles. So I think you need to hire for that all-around athlete so that they're open-minded to doing all that range of things.
So how have you handled the growth with Jet Black? I mean, it's only available in New York City right now,
Yep.
right? Okay, so and you went from 0 to almost 200 employees. How have you handled that growth?
Yeah, so it's been really quick and really fast. I think this is where, again, this being at it my second time comes in handy, because one important thing that we did was we set our culture and our core values from early on. So I think realizing that we were going to go really fast, it was like, okay, we need to all get aligned around like, what is the culture, what are the values that we stand for, so that when we hire people, we have people that resemble those values enough. Because I think that's the biggest risk when you grow really quickly, is that you start to empower other people to make hiring decisions. You have to do that. But if you're not all aligned of like the core DNA and values, things like flexibility, like kind of hunger and ambition, that you're gonna like be a self-starter and take things on, I think that's where you can go wrong.
Okay, so you have to be careful about that. Let's talk a little bit. I know that there was interest in diversity and inclusion. How do you make sure that your talent pool has that for a company?
Yeah, well, so at Rent the Runway, we have, I think it's close to like, it's 65% women, and I think kind of from a diversity perspective, it's closer to like 75%. The numbers are fairly similar actually at Jet Black too. So that happened naturally, and I feel really lucky for that. We literally have like been putting the best people in the jobs, right? Like, so people apply to some extent. If you're passionate about a concept, so like Rent the Runway is a female-oriented business and brand, and so you have probably a greater percentage of women applying for those jobs. So then just the candidate funnel happens to look kind of greater percentage women, but then they often relate to the consumer, and so because of that, they have both the passion but also the ability to be the best person to fill that role. So I feel lucky in the sense that I think if you create a diverse workforce, you have the best range of perspectives, you have potentially the best passion for the end consumer. And so in our instance, this happens fairly organically. I think other companies need to work at it more proactively, especially if, let's say, you're trying to enter a new industry. I was talking to an athletic brand, and they're trying to attract more women and kind of go after a female demographic. Then you need to proactively be like, okay, well, who understands and is passionate about this consumer? And hire, I think, some people who resemble that consumer.
All right. I was listening to an interview that you did, and you said you're not a big fan of like networking events per se.
True.
So we're at this networking event. Hello, everybody. So explain that. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think some of it comes down to I'm super busy. I think we're all super busy, more and more than ever. And macro trends, women are working at greater rates. They're more and more the primary breadwinner for their families, yet they're still having kids at the same rates. So we are all busy. I value networking when if someone goes up to me and is like, this is how you can help me. Here's a specific question I have, right? Yeah. I'm like, let's cut to the chase, because I want to be helpful. Like, I want to use my time well. So anytime that, someone is, for example, it's like, I want a mentor. Can you be my mentor? Can we talk? I'm like, well, just start calling me when you have a question. Like, what do you want me to help you with? And then, to me, that's what it is. So it depends, I guess, how you define networking. Yeah. I think just for the sake of, hi, how are you doing? At some point, you've got to get into the meat of it.
So just email Jenny.Fleiss or Jenny Fleiss at
with your question
at AOL something.
With your question, Jen and I started the Rent the Runway Foundation to support female entrepreneurs, and we tried to pull from kind of our experience and the help that we got to think about what could we do that was most important and effective, but some of it to help other women. And some of it came, though, from like we would get so many pings for people asking us help and advice. And we tried to make that whole organization just be very action-oriented so that every session is like, how can we take you the next step in your entrepreneurial journey? What can we do for you right now? And so it might be that you're in a session around like creating your elevator pitch and practicing it. It might be that like you need to find a chief marketing officer and that like you're in a room with people like to find them, right? So I think the more we can kind of be action-oriented with our time is very healthy.
And what is the name of your foundation?
So it's called the Rent the Runway Foundation.
Okay.
And Project Entrepreneur is like the cornerstone event that we have.
Okay. And have you had much success with that yet? I mean, or is it brand new?
So it's been going for 3 years now. This is going into our 4th year. And each year we have 12 women who pitch in this kind of business plan competition out of about 1,000 that apply. And from those, we then incubate as many of them as we can in offices throughout the city. And most of them are at Rent the Runway. We had one at Jet Black. We've had some at XO Group, which is like the Knot. We've had Rebecca Minkoff. Lots of different companies host these businesses. And the theory behind that is that by being in an environment of other entrepreneurial companies, you are in the best place to learn. So like at Rent the Runway, people are going over to our analytics team and asking questions, going over our product team and asking questions, going to our marketing team and being like, here's my logo, what do you think, can I tweak it? That's the best way that we could give back. It was also the fastest way we felt people could learn and most effective. So it's been very successful. Out of every one of those classes, there's been at least one person who's gone on to raise not just their seed round, but also their Series A round. Wow. I think about half of the businesses have been funded in some way. So I think we are, in our own way, making a dent in female entrepreneurship.
Oh, sounds fabulous. All right, so you talked about macro trends. What are some of the macro trends that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one is this drive for efficiency, and time is the greatest luxury. And that does tie into women working more, women being responsible for being the breadwinner in their families, yet still having children. And so the trickle-down effects of that efficiency drive are a few things. I think one is you think of all the services that need to exist to enable people to be most efficient. So it could be services like Instacart, where you have your specific groceries you want to get, but like someone else is going to shop. It could be just the speed of shipping and how much faster that has gotten, right? So this expectation of service and speed has gotten way bigger. The next bucket I think of is personalization. Personalization is a term that gets used so much, but at the heart of it, it is an efficiency tool. It is a way for me to say, I'm going to a site, and rather than seeing 30,000 options, I'm going to see the 3 that are best for me. And for it to be accurate is very powerful. And so that's part of what Jet Black tries to do, because if you think of shopping over text, I can't send you more than 3 items. So it forces us to distill them for you, and it forces then you as a consumer to just be like, I trust you, these are the right, I'm going to pick one of these 3. But in the world of like in e-commerce, we have everything at our fingertips, which means that it takes so much work to refine that. So the problem is just getting worse and worse, and we need to find ways to personalize. And that will be increasingly true if you think of people shopping over text or over their voice, where you can't send multiple items. Another thing I'll say related to personalization, brands are a form of personalization. So there's this big question of like, will brands matter, and how's that going to shake out? And I think yes, because it helps us save time as a way to personalize. And then I think that the third category I'd kind of say is like experiential. So when you are spending your time, you expect it to not just be that you got your product. You want it to kind of be an experience. So you're going to like buy a pair of sneakers, but like if you're going to go into the Nike store, it's because you're going to get them custom painted and made, and there's like a dipping studio, and then you're going to get to Instagram about it, and you're going to get to feel like you connected with a brand that's doing something innovative. If you're going to buy like Tom shoes, it's because like you also like care for what they stand for as a brand. So I think there's like a greater onus for brands and companies to be more than just the product, for them to stand behind either an experience or kind of an ambition and social good. So I think these are all healthy things. Like I love them all, but that's some of the big picture things I see happening right now.
Interesting. All right, so here in Southeast Wisconsin, we have a huge development, Foxconn, that is going up. It's about an hour south of here. We also have a new arena, and they're doing a whole lot of changes and development around this beautiful new arena. For people here, what should we be looking for as far as opportunities as entrepreneurs or ideas or ways to kind of jump in or take advantage of? I mean, I think these changes are probably the biggest I've seen in 20 years here in Southeast Wisconsin.
Yeah. So these are big changes. I feel like in general, the world around us is changing at a super fast clip, right? Like think of artificial intelligence, machine learning, you hear that stuff, and it's like, how is that going to change our jobs in our world? Like, this is all happening really quickly. And that can be scary. And so some of it is just being empathetic to the people where change can be scary and kind of trying to crawl, walk, run as much as possible. And that was the example of the empathy we had for Diane von Furstenberg when the industry was changing so quickly. And it's like, put yourself in their shoes. So I think there needs to be some recognition of that as kind of communications go out and as hopefully change happens. It's going to happen, but can it happen in a gradual way? I think it's really cool as entrepreneurs. For those of you who have like an entrepreneurial DNA, though, I'd be thinking like, should I invest in local real estate? Like, what else can I do? Like, is there a local coffee shop because people are going to need to get coffee? Are there enough childcare facilities? Are there enough after-school programs? Right? Like, I think for me, the entrepreneur in me, like, it's like my wheels are spinning around. Like, should I start a food truck business because people who are going to be building this are going to like be construction workers. They're going to have breaks and they're going to need food. So I think that like for that, these moments of change are real opportunities for entrepreneurs to get kind of your juices flowing. And that's when I use the word entrepreneur, it doesn't have to just be like an individual or a small business. I think for all companies and corporations to think about how can they evolve what they're doing to take advantage of changes that are inevitably going to happen in our landscape.
I know you talked about how you and Jenny had it was a challenge at first hearing no a lot, but
yeah.
How did you take that as a positive and just not say, all right, I quit. This is a dumb idea. DVF says it's a dumb idea. We're just not going to do this anymore. How did you guys get past that?
I think you need to have the mindset that like, if it was easy, someone else would have done it before, right? So if we heard yes from DVF after sending her one random email, like someone else probably would have gotten there first. And I remember even early days, we were talking about this business to anyone who would listen, and we were at Harvard Business School still, and there was one professor who I respect so much, and she's very renowned, and she was like, well, this is like interesting, good idea, but it sounds so hard. Like, you're smart girls, like, do something that's like entrepreneurial but easier. And that was demoralizing to hear, for sure. And she was right, but that has been our biggest competitive advantage. So I think right, like no one else has done this and created a scalable business because it is really hard and it is capital intensive. We created the world's largest dry cleaner. Like, I never signed up for that, right? I was like starting this business, I was like, fashion's fun, I love it, I want other cool things to wear, like, this is interesting.
And that was a result of the fact that it was getting so popular, right? And it was becoming a hassle to like send the stuff out to get dry cleaned.
It was a result, yeah, a few things. So one is that like dry cleaning is a mom and pop industry where they're fairly pretty small operations, and so we grew out of the ability to have one service us, right? And they weren't able to grow fast enough to accommodate our growth. So then you start having a few different dry cleaners and then having your inventory spread around. You're losing time. Like, inventory is money, right? So every time it's tied up in a dry cleaner and you need to have an extra day to get it back to your warehouse to send it out to a customer, that's time. You have shrinkage, you have loss factors, you're tracking down all these items. So it became just too cumbersome. And then I think eventually we realized it could also be a really competitive advantage in a few ways. One was if we had the expertise to dry clean at scale, no one else was doing that. So that was a competitive advantage. It cost money, and if we had money to channel towards this, other people probably couldn't do that. We could learn about what fabrics and materials lasted the best and what cleaning methods we could use to keep them lasting longer. And so that's been a whole area of innovation for us also. One of the greatest gifts of entrepreneurship, though, is like being a little bit naive, like because like we didn't think we would have to grow and start this dry cleaning business. But it is, I think, there's a double-edged sword to everything, and I think there's a big part of optimism in entrepreneurship that's important. And when I think of hiring, I often ask people, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how lucky are you? And, like, that's a weird question, right? But if they say, like, 9 or 10, like, that just means they have a positive outlook on life, because you can look at that no response from DVF, or you can look at that marketing professor who told us this was hard. You can look at it in a negative. You can be like, well, what's the positive of that? Like, yeah. Right? Like, there's then like an opportunity there.
All right. We have our malls, like a lot of malls around the country, have struggled with online sales and all of that. Where do you see the future of retail right now?
So I think there's so much interesting stuff going on, and it's another big area of opportunity. So one, experiential. Like, I think when you create stores that are also experiences, it's very powerful. So if you've ever heard of, the Museum of Ice Cream is another example that I like to use. It's very Instagram, like it's taking advantage of the fact that social media and Instagram is a thing, that if people are going to spend their time, they want not just to go buy a pint of ice cream, but they also like want to have an Instagrammable experience or maybe learn how the ice cream was made. So I think that's one cool opportunity for physical spaces. I think something else that I've seen more that's interesting is these, I'll call it a pop-up experience, but it's often like a landlord taking over a space and then on a rotating basis having kind of like the marketplace here, more up-and-coming vendors who might not be able to commit to 5-year leases. Maybe they can even commit to just month by month, or maybe they're doing a revenue share deal. But you're getting a chance for more up-and-coming brands to actually showcase themselves in a physical space. And I think for a consumer, it's more fun because like it's a sense of discovery. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to find. It's going to be something new. It's going to be, I'm going to be the only one to have this product. So I also like this idea of having these almost like malls within malls, right, where you have a lot of more startup type shops who are starting to experiment and learn and introduce their products to new consumers.
So as far as entrepreneurship, do you have some advice for us about how people can make a bigger impact within their organization? They're not necessarily looking to leave or start up the next big thing, but what can they do within their own companies to make a difference?
I definitely do. I'm going to say one more thing about physical spaces first, because I think there's a great, so Rent the Runway has stores. We have 4 stores. We're going to open a 5th store. And initially, we were very resistant to stores. We're like, we're an online business. We don't want physical retail. That's not how we're built. We kept hearing enough from our customers. You have to find ways to listen to your customers that we're like, we're going to try this. We spent $3,000. We put up some curtains. We're like, come in and try on dresses. And no, seriously, like, come and try if you want.
Sometimes it's that easy,
right?
Okay.
We got to find ways to test for not much money. Even this was now like 4 or 5 years into the business that we were doing this. So we kept having this theme of like, can you try stuff for not much money to like see if it works and see what happens. And customers went crazy over it. We're like, this is bigger conversion, bigger order values, converting new types of customers. But the behaviors we've now seen in those stores, first of all, they're mini warehouses. So if you have a store in Chicago, which we do, and there's a snowstorm and suddenly the local UPS facility is closed and people have their black tie events, but we can't get them their dresses, that's like a big problem, and people hated our brand for it sometimes, right? But now, if I have 2,000 dresses in that store, I can courier you items from that store. I can offer you the chance to come in. If you get a dress that doesn't fit you and you live near a local store, come on in, take something else that's there. Even if your event is tonight, we can get it to you. So I think it's for retail, some of these like creative use cases that you think about, like a store as these mini warehouses is another trend, and then following the path of consumers and how they're interacting. As far as your question around advice for entrepreneurs, especially within larger organizations, I think like there's, truly to me, entrepreneurship is just someone who wants to get stuff done, make stuff happen, and who can mobilize that. And so within Walmart now, which is a very large company, some of the ways we are innovating and getting kind of entrepreneurial ideas out there is finding ways to work in like smaller, nimble teams. And I think that that's often what you hear. You hear kind of this pizza principle, which is that if it's a team that's bigger than can share kind of a pizza pie, then like that's maybe too big. So I think finding ways to structure your organization and maybe put people even in a separate office. We're in a separate office. We're not in Bentonville. We're not in the Jet headquarters. Jet Black is in its separate space. Can you find ways to like let people really feel empowered to kind of build their own culture, build their own company so that they can run quickly? You have to create the ability to fail and for it to be okay to fail. So test, fail is a big piece of starting up. And that takes some appetite at the top for that, right? Because not every dollar is going to have a bottom line positive contribution from the get-go. I think entrepreneurship takes time, it takes pivots, it takes iterations, but I think there's a lot you can do to set it up structurally. And then I think it's also up to, the individual to be the one who goes beyond your day-to-day goals, to be the one who says, like, I have an additional idea, it's not in my scope of work, it's not my job, but like I see an opportunity and I'm gonna take the extra hours at night and on the weekend and like pitch that and bring that up to my boss or to someone else in the organization. So I think it's on kind of all of us to also, make those entrepreneurial swings and create those opportunities for ourselves.
And just be an all-around athlete, right? I mean, that goes back to what.
Yeah, I think to like be a little, if you're working on an idea you have for a business, you're going to not have to just stay in your lane and your function. You're going to have to think about like all the different components and then pull something together to pitch the holistic concept to someone else so that you can work on it. But I think that has to happen. I think more innovation from within big companies is actually the most efficient way for it to happen. Like it's not efficient for startups to start and then companies to acquire them. It would be far more efficient for them to start within a business to begin with. And then when you're building things like technology, rather than having to integrate later, you know what you need to do and how it has to work. So I think that that's the model we need to all lean into, and making that work will be the best for our macro economy.
So the term disruptor, when it comes to entrepreneurs, what do you think about that term? Because it kind of, some would say, has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah, I've never thought of it as a negative word, so it's interesting. I guess on its own, it feels like a negative word, but then whenever people refer to Rent the Runway disrupting the fashion industry, we were the ones who were often saying that when we were trying to pitch to investors. We're we're going to disrupt the fashion industry. We always thought it was a good thing. So double-edged sword, again, kind of some of the optimism that you bring to something. We're in a moment where most things need to be changed. Now, change versus disruption, again, probably somewhat of a subtlety. But the reality is consumer behavior is changing so quickly, and I think disruption to me really means you need to help train people on new behaviors, because that's where you see step function changes. So even something like shopping over text message, there's a lot we need to get people comfortable with that's not obvious. Renting clothing, and how does that fit into your life? And the millions of questions you're gonna have where you're what if I spill on it? What if it doesn't fit me? What if it gets lost in the mail, right? You're gonna have all these questions. I think you're really retraining customers every time you disrupt. But it's seeing the positive, it's thinking about the opportunities around the ecosystem, and then I think it is always having the sensitivity to the fact that it's going to be a big change for the industry, and how can you expect that it's going to be 10 sales meetings and you need to crawl, walk, run.
All right. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, and I mean, you do so much. You're amazing. You have 3 kids. I think a lot of us can relate to just being crazy busy all the time. So how do you do it? I know we all have our individual ways of balancing life, but how do you balance life?
So I do think that one of the most important career decisions you make is your spouse, and so I'm lucky to have a spouse that is right. It's true. So I made that decision. I got married when I was 25, so it was Rent the Runway was just starting as an idea in our minds at the time. So couldn't have known what was to come. But I think finding someone who loves being a dad and shares in that work is important. It's up to me, though, to make that happen as well. So there are many times where I think women naturally take on roles and responsibilities of the home or of kids, and they think it's a given that they should, but instead I think you need to ask the question. So example of did you, my husband would be we're going, where's the diaper bag? Did you pack the diaper bag? I'm no, did you pack the diaper bag? And you know what, that's gonna mean that there's a few times where there's no diaper bag, and we're out in the wild and there's no diaper bag, right? And I probably knew that I purposely didn't pack the diaper bag, and maybe I didn't even ask the question of did you pass it? So I think some of it, or it's leaving your husband alone with the kids and with not an instruction manual when you go, right? I think there's these important things, or I was away for a week and they were we're out of groceries. And I was well, you are adults. You are quite able to go to the store and buy groceries, right? So I think sometimes it's making sure we don't we don't set the traps for ourselves and kind of share that balance of work. I am big into, sometimes too much into multitasking, but I will do things I'll go for runs with my husband, and that'll be our date. I'll go for a run or a workout class with another entrepreneur or a friend that I'm wanting to catch up with. So I'm constantly trying to bring both aspects of things that are important to me. I'm trying to do 2 things at once often. And then another piece of it, I think the world we live in, there's much more blurred lines between social and personal and our work lives. And I think that can be healthy in the sense that I will bring my kids to the office. I think it's a good vibe that other people then see that's okay. And part of the reason I do it is I like for them to feel it's not a trade-off and a choice when I'm going to work, but that they're also kind of a part of that, and that's a part of me. I try to talk to them if I'm traveling, I'm going to be away for a night, I'm telling them what I'm going to do. And I tell them about it, and I think then they're oh, that's interesting, I get it, And even it's more my 6-year-old, but I think you need to include your family as a part of your career journey as much as is possible too.
All right. Well, Jenny Fleiss, I know we enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being with us here.
Yeah,
at the
thank you. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really wonderful. Oh my gosh, thank you. Let's give another round of applause to Jenny. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your story. Susan Kim, thank you also for moderating today. So many key takeaways, all right? Let me see if I can read my writing here. No doesn't mean no, it just means not yet. The importance of macro trends, picking the right team, and you gotta have hustle, right? Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. We also want to thank our premier sponsor, BMO Harris Bank, for being with us today. Thank you, Kara Kaiser. And thank you to all our sponsors today. So let's give them another round of applause. Our amazing, amazing co-chairs, Kara, Sue, and Jess, thank you. And to our committee members to help put this event together. Truly, this was an exceptional one for the books for Temple Milwaukee. And I have to pay a special recognition. Jenny, this is my all-around athletes. These are my A-team from Temple Milwaukee, Marit Harm and Kelsey Aragon. Thank you so much. Stand up, ladies, stand up. Yay! Truly, this event would not be possible with all of their hard work, and we have a good time together. It's a lot of fun, so thank you. If you haven't had a chance, the marketplace will be open. If you haven't been into that room to meet these 12 phenomenal female entrepreneurs, please do so. They have some really incredible stories. They share a lot of the stories that Jenny talked about, some challenges and how they've been able to overcome them. So they'll be open and ready for your questions. So please take some moments to say hi to them and learn about their business. And finally, one more important announcement. Temple Milwaukee is now accepting nominations for our 29th annual Mentor Awards. And this year, next year, February 14th of 2019, I think that's Valentine's Day. So we're doing a little bit of love for our mentors. So we're accepting nominations through October 26th. So if you think about that person that has really mentored you, we're looking for individuals and corporations for this prestigious award. Look for all of the information on our Temple Milwaukee website. Thank you all for being here. Again, thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Susan. This was truly a tremendous event. Enjoy your Thursday. Thanks so much.